I know that is a little loud, okay? I cannot turn my AC off. I just can't. It is so disgustingly hot. I got a comment a while ago where one of you, Bogdan Badzukov, I would love to know what your favorite pop star slash musician era or album rollout aesthetic is and why. And I really like that question because I wanted to make something like that for a while, so I was really excited that someone asked for it. And we're gonna start with Red Velvet. Yes, I know, I'm just a Red Velvet bitch. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. They're just those girls, you know, for me. And I'm just, personally, I'm a girl's girl and I am a girl group girl. We're gonna start with one of the fan favorites. It is Red Velvet Bad Boy. I know that some of you will think that I am very, very basic for this. And that is okay. Like, I'm okay with that, to be honest. The way that they rolled out this album was just fantastic. First of all, they started with Peekaboo. We're gonna talk about Peekaboo next. Actually, I should have switched them around because Peekaboo was first, but they had this comeback called Peekaboo, and then they came back with a repackage of their album, and the repackage was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The music on that album, oh, so good. If you are a fan of groups like TLC, Flow, SWV, I think you're gonna love this album. The aesthetic is just so up my alley that I had to talk about it first because I am so in love with it. Just look at what the album looks like. Girl, come on. Oh, come on. It's 90s, but it also has a little bit of that film noir mixed in terms of like the way that the photos are edited. Teasers. Oh my god. I'm gonna insert a couple of them here. They're just so good. Like, something about it just was speaking to me, okay? The fishnets, the graphics that they chose were so interesting and mixed with arm warmers that are also fishnets and all of these chokers and stuff like that. This is very much my taste in 2015. I just will always talk about this, and if you think that I'm basic for that, that's okay. I don't mind being basic if basic means liking this. Look at these images just holding weapons. Joy is just walking around with her little like pigtails holding a broken bottle, which in my first language is called a rose. It's just girls being violent, but like also talking shit in the music video, like whispering and stuff like that, gossiping. I just love it. This is like just something about it.
I'm the goth supermodel from the future.
Something about it is just so right for me. Oh, let me show you another picture. This is kind of like a bit of a different concept. The outfits, everything is just so good. And also, I might insert a couple of more images that will show you what I mean, but they were taking a lot of pictures with a soft diffuser filter on the camera that gives the best type of glow. And I personally, whenever I do photography, I always use a filter like that just because I just love it so much. And like, I know that it might make my photography a bit too dreamy and glowy all the time and not have that crispness, but I just don't think that crispness is something that is always needed. To me personally, I think that we're seeing way too much detail nowadays. Like, we need to calm down in terms of how much we even see in terms of ourselves, you know, like all the HD cameras, HD, 4K, 6K, 8K. I think that there needs to be a fucking limit. To me personally, I prefer a little bit less detail as long as the composition and the colors are kind of working towards creating something beautiful. And I want to mention this. I should have mentioned it a long time ago or explained it a long time ago, but I'm gonna mention it multiple times because I kind of feel like people are not getting what the expertise that I have is and what this channel is all about. I do love fashion, I do love styling, but it is only a part of the bigger picture for me. I'm not a fashion person. I am an artist who likes fashion as part of the artistic pursuits, part of the overall image. To me, fashion is always about color, line, the way it moves, the fabrics, geometry of it all, you know, the way that it visually looks, because I have a visual arts degree. That's what I know. All the other stuff like labels, designer names, years, I know some things and I don't know other things. I'm not an expert specifically on fashion. If you want someone to talk about the overall picture, if you want someone to talk about artistic direction, if you want someone to talk about visual arts, the way that things are shot, while at the same time what is being shot, including fashion, you can come to me. But if you want me to be sitting here and being like, this is what Chanel released in 93 or whatever, it's just not gonna happen that often. Like I do know what they released coincidentally that year, but I don't have that knowledge for every year. I don't have that knowledge for all collections. I don't care, to be honest, okay? I also don't really love Chanel. I don't really like Chanel as a designer. I am here for the avant-garde. I'm here for the weird shit, you know? I'm here for the Iris van Herpens, for the Schiaparellis of the world, okay? I do not care for everything under the sun that's related to fashion, okay? Now that we got that out of the way, I should fucking plaster it somewhere on my channel so people know what they're getting into, because sometimes the comments that I get of people not getting specifically just fashion stuff is like confusing to me. It's like, girl, this is not what we do here. This comeback gave me an obsession with these pants. Let me show you. Oh my god. I was probably obsessed for like 2 years with all pants that were detached and reattached with like statement pieces, things like really chunky metal, slightly grungy kind of look, the deconstruction in it too, you know, it just something was really speaking to me, okay? I was obsessed for 2 years. This specific pair is from MYOB, and I remember I was just like, oh, this is for me, girl. Obviously, did not buy it because I was a student. That's just not the kind of money that I just have lying around, okay? But I did recreate it with a massive pair of pants that I had. It kind of quenched my need for this type of pair of pants. Unfortunately, they are absolutely humongous. I could fit into them like maybe 4 times because I got like an extra large because they were so cheap, and I was like, oh, I can remake them. I can totally remake them, as if I know how to do that. Check out that video. I'm link it down below just because if you haven't seen it, I think you're gonna love it, so I'm gonna leave it there. Let's move on to Peekaboo. Peekaboo, this comeback gave us what Red Velvet is best at. Matching kind of looks that give you a bit of a coven feel. Red Velvet definitely likes that kind of imagery of like a girl's coven, something like that, you know? And in this instance, it was all red dresses with red crowns. They're from Comme des Garçons, and like they're quite nice looking all together. Like it's just something about coven-esque looks that are a little bit more interesting than just regurgitating old ideas of what witches look like. Just speaks to me, just does it for me, you know? What I loved the most was, first of all, the editing was absolutely fantastic on the promotional images, on the images that were in the album. Just look at this. Them sleeping, there's clouds and stuff like that. It's just something about this house that they chose, this mansion that's all wooden and in dark wood. Fantastic. And the thing that I really liked about their photo shoot, a bit of horror aesthetics. They like to do summer comebacks, and as far as I understand, in the West it's not really associated like horror and summer together, but in the East, horror and summer are kind of associated to go hand in hand. So a lot of the time when they have a summer comeback, it's a little bit horror inspired. In this case, like they have a really interesting styling going on. There's like a lot of emerald and gold. I wouldn't say that I love every single piece or something like that, but they definitely look really good and cohesive together, and they give the right vibe. What I personally really enjoy about the way that they went about this is the lighting. I think that this lighting was absolutely fantastic. I do not know how they both managed to light up their faces in a way that doesn't make them look terrible and have a horror-esque lighting, which is this lighting that kind of goes from below rather than from the front. Or there's different types of styles and techniques how you can achieve regular type of lighting and whatever, but in this case they were going for a little bit of a horror vibe, so there's like a big shadow behind them. What I assume they did is like they had maybe something lighting up their faces that's a little bit more diffused, a little bit less of a strong light, and then they had like a really strong light below them so they could get this. But I'm still surprised that they didn't get a lot of lines here, wherever you have natural indents in your face. I'm really surprised that they don't have that. Maybe they edited it out, but it looks fantastic. Something about this, about the way they lit up this scene, this picture, bumps it up in terms of concept. That's how you do it, okay? These outfits wouldn't be anything if they weren't photographed in this way, you know? That's what I like about the rollouts of albums or about full projects. It's fascinating how one thing can just add so much to the product. You can also see it in this image. Look at this. This is fantastic. It's just so good. Refined and a little bit horror-esque inspired, but also old Hollywood inspired in terms of the lighting, because this lighting was actually really popular, I believe, in old Hollywood movies, as well as lighting from way above that would make you look ethereal. That was kind of very popular. Anyway, let's move on to Rookie. And the red, I have the same thing to say about both. I just think that concept-wise, this is really interesting, the way that they decided to edit it, the way that they made their outfits. I don't think that they are bought from someplace or something like that. I think that they just designed them. I don't know, there's something very unique about this era of Red Velvet and about how they made them look. I do associate it with the red too. I think that they kind of fall in the same category for me personally. See, again, matching outfits, matching hairstyles. It's just something is so fun about this, and it's really rare to see that with girl groups nowadays. I just really loved how they made their hair stand up. They probably put some wires in there, then bend it around, and it looks fantastic, and it looks really good in the music video as well. Really Bad Boy is the last one we're going to talk about when it comes to Red Velvet, but look at this poster. It just screams a movie poster. This massive mouth that they made. By the way, it's not edited. They actually had that mouth made. You can see it in the music video. You can see them, yeah, like literally sitting in it. It's fantastic. The colors they chose, they went with red, highlighter, yellowish green, some purple, and again, I wouldn't say that I love every single piece of clothing that they are wearing separately. I do like most of the clothing that's like, for example, in this image, but I wouldn't say that out of all of the outfits that they had for this era that I loved every single piece, but together it just worked. It just did the thing, you know, it just did what it needed to do. This was a very fun, really interesting approach to horror movies, kind of like an homage to horror movies. There was a point where Wendy and Irene are dressed as the twins from The Shining. A lot of Scoot clothing Wendy is wearing. I think that both the top and the bottom, it's from Scoot. That was a moment where like K-pop artists started to wear a lot of Scoot, and also Billie Eilish also did, and she kind of became their sort of an ambassador. I don't know if they actually have that type of relationship in terms of being signed to work together, but she definitely wore a lot of their stuff, so I kind of assume that they have some kind of business relationship, but I'm not 100% sure. Also really interesting looks, street style inspired, a lot of funky imagery, spray painted imagery, you know, on clothes. It's an interesting brand. Here's a different look that also gives the same type of vibe again, right? Like you can see that there's red, there's also, they added some animal print, greenish yellow highlighter color. It's interesting because they kind of mixed very elegant pieces with very sporty pieces, and they played around with it, but it all works for this concept, and it made them look fantastic. I think that the styling for this was actually very good, even though each one of those outfits, some of them I wouldn't wear or say that it's like great, but for some reason together it just works, and that's what you're looking for in terms of styling for a group, right? And also another thing that I really enjoyed about them is that they took pictures at the time. I don't remember which year this was exactly. This might have been 2018 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. At the time, it wasn't as popular to be taking pictures that are inspired by kind of this 70s, slightly blurry, glowy, with rainbows or with flares, like lens flares kind of images, and they kind of brought it back, I guess. This was a great way to take pictures of it. I really, really enjoyed that. That was fantastic. Now, let's talk about Taylor Swift. So I personally, I wouldn't say that I like the outfits that she wears in terms of being like, okay, I would wear that. I wouldn't, it's not my style in any shape or form. I personally really appreciate how over the years, over her really quite a long career, she managed to consistently change things for each era very deliberately. You can tell that everything is very calculated, and maybe she doesn't talk about it that much, that it's very calculated. I personally don't mind that it's calculated because this is her job. This is her career and this is her art. I understand that things need to be calculated in order to keep your career going, especially at the size in terms of like success that she's at. I do wish that she'd stop flying around on her private jet so much, but that's a whole other conversation. Most of you are probably familiar with the fact that she kind of had like multiple eras and stuff like that. I just really love that she was so deliberate from the very beginning. That is really rare with artists that have a hand in their artistic direction, and Taylor always had a hand in her artistic direction because she does write her music and all of that kind of stuff. So in the debut, she had her hair like really flowy. Her debut and Fearless kind of had very similar vibes. Basically, her debut was very yeehaw. Fearless added a little bit of prom dress kind of aesthetic, and I think You Belong With Me came out at that point, so also what was it band aesthetic, you know. Her curls became a bit more loose while at the same time a little bit less frizzy. Oh my god, this dress, I think this is from Fearless era. I loved it so much back then. Like when I saw that performance, I was just gagging. That was just looked so good, and it was so well matched with the song and with the way that Taylor was dancing. She knew what she chose for the performance. That's what I really like about her decisions, that she's very deliberate about everything, and it does show, you know, it shows that she does think a lot about those things and about how to make the best experience in terms of a performance or in terms of a music video or styling, whatever it is. Then she slowly started to transition to, you know, some gowns and some vintage elements, and moving away from a little bit of, you know, very prom-esque aesthetic. Still would argue that this is very prom, but I think that she was moving away from it in terms of what she was trying to do. More heels in her personal life. That's the thing. When she was changing eras musically and in terms of her aesthetic musically, she was also changing her personal style, which also made a big difference. Like it kind of ingrained those different eras of music into your mind, which I think is a very good idea. If you're an artist, definitely take notes, because it's a good idea to do that. Then we got Red, which definitely had some inspiration taken from a bit of a hipster-ish culture, a little bit of a twee kind of thing going on, a little bit of classic straight lines and mid-calf dresses in her personal style. This dress kind of like classic Taylor of that period. She also had more of a straight type of hair at that point. I would say that this skirt, sometimes she had like skirts mid-calf. Oftentimes I think that was the length. And then we move on to 1989. That is when she really capitalized on the coordinated sets and crop top with high-waisted bottoms craze of that time. She did use it at the very right time, to be honest. She was one of the first ones in pop to bring back the 80s in a big way. It was before The Weeknd and all that. Definitely was a great idea. It fit the aesthetic really well. She was kind of going for more of a young girl in a big city kind of thing, rich girl. She cut off her hair, it's a bob, and she was also, you know, wearing tons of heels, and that was her like Victoria's Secret, running around with Carly Claus era. Everything worked for that era in terms of it being cohesive. She's smart about how she built her career. She came back with Reputation. It was a very dark, edgy era for her. Hair was a little bit longer. It was a little bit more frizzy. A lot of black, white, either really oversized or really skin-tight clothing, thigh-high boots. And again, you can see that in her personal style too. She started wearing oversized shirts, like for example like this, so a white oversized shirt, or for example in this photo shoot, this is a quintessential Reputation era kind of photo shoot. You got this oversized jacket, she's got dark makeup, which she usually doesn't have, like the smoky eye, boots that are incredibly high. And then we move on to Lover. This is personally my least favorite era, mostly because I know why. I hate festivals, and it's very much festival themed, to me at least. I think that it very much makes sense that she wanted to make a Lover festival, because everything was festival themed. She was wearing a lot of tassels, tie-dye colors, because that is very festival-ish. More festival clothes, hair dyed at the bottom with like, I think it's temporary dye, but something like that, you know, something faded a little bit. A lot of pastel colors, so that was kind of that era. And then we move on to Folklore, which I like more aesthetically speaking. I wrote down Folklore or Evermore, both of them have the same aesthetic, is basically cottagecore, English countryside. For those of you who play Sims, this Sims 4 cottage living. Am I wrong? Her hairstyle in that cottagecore aesthetic, the dresses, the photo shoot style, the locations, English countryside kind of mixture. I think that she just handles her career really well. It's really good decisions. In the future, people will be able to easily identify which era the song or outfit or whatever is from because of how clear her styling choices were. She's definitely gonna be one of those artists that are gonna be iconic for years. My personal favorite, which is the aesthetic that I absolutely adore, an aesthetic that I would wear, FKA Twigs, Magdalene. FKA Twigs, first of all, she's my girl. I love her. I do. Whenever someone asks me what was the best concert I went to, I say FKA Twigs because God, it was so good. If you ever get a chance to go see FKA Twigs, you should. You definitely should. The show was absolutely fantastic. The girl danced with a sword, literally. Pole danced. She had absolutely fantastic, crazy Baroque and pirate inspired outfits mixed with some of the inspiration coming from Magdalene paintings from different eras. The hair, this hat, I absolutely love it. The makeup, it's always so iconic the way that she does her lipstick. She kind of carries it over from era to era. It's not like specific to Magdalene era, but I still love it. And obviously she had a great style from the beginning of her career, but this is just my favorite. The entire rollout of this album, Mary Magdalene song, fantastic. Holy Terrain, a lot of songs off of that album are actually, they're so good. The makeup, the nails have this Harley Quinn pattern on them, which she kind of repeated in many outfits too. There's also this outfit which is just absolutely insane. The thing is, the way that I kind of would describe her style in this era would be avant-garde, regal, Baroque, and pirate. She worked with this guy named Ed Marler, who is a designer, so he like designed some of her gowns for performances. His partner, whose name is Matthew Josephs, my accent is just like jumping out every 2 seconds, but Matthew Josephs, who is her stylist. So both of them kind of created all of these looks, this Baroque ball gown combinations of this, hats and shirts that just have this flowiness to them. I absolutely adore like pirate style that's elevated to the avant-garde. God, it's so good. This photo is just sinful. Like, are you kidding me? The colors, just look at this. Is that allowed? Can you be doing this? Oh, it's just so rich. Just so rich in color, and the draping and the composition of this image, my goodness, just the makeup, everything just works, and it works so well. Look at this pirate look. God, it's just so good. Everything about it takes my breath away. I absolutely adore it. I wanted to end like on a really high note for this video, and this is definitely it. She actually, you probably, if you dabble in Pinterest and Twitter, you've probably seen this, especially if you like fashion. A lot of people were reposting it. She kind of went a bit viral in that sense when she wore Vivienne Westwood's corset that features François Boucher painting. So Baroque, so Rococo. Especially because of the painting, you can obviously call it Rococo. But it's just so good. It's just so pretty. She was basically posted everywhere. You've probably seen this picture, as you should have, because it deserves that attention. I absolutely adore it, and I might make a video on symbolism and the art that inspired everything in the rollout of FKA Twigs Magdalene. Let me know if you would be interested in that, because that would be a lot of work. So I want to know if people would actually be interested in seeing it. But I absolutely adored that rollout, that album. The fashion was just so good for that whole era. I was really excited to talk about this. Thank you for watching. I am working on a couple of videos that are gonna be a little bit longer and a little bit, like, one of them was obviously the Winx one that's gonna take a while, but the other one that's also gonna take a while but is very different is going to be an art special. That's how I describe it. So like, you know how comedy specials are like an hour of kind of like a monologue or whatever, but it could be broken down differently or whatever. It's kind of like that it's a one piece thing, but it is a video obviously, and it is an art special, and it's going to be in sections. It's going to have different art pieces involved in it, and it's going to be a little bit of an experimental video, but it's going to be like a big performance-esque art special. So you're gonna get like a comedy special, but that's not a comedy special, that's an art special. Does that make sense? I don't know how to describe it otherwise. If you have any ideas on how I can describe it more efficiently to kind of give that same understanding of what I'm talking about, please let me know. When I release it, if you think that there's a different way I should be describing it than what we come up with right now, let me know too. But I'm really excited for you to see it. I think it's gonna be really interesting for us to, chat about afterwards. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!